Hello, this is part 2 on top DX lens recommendations. Now we'll get to the nitty-gritty of what I could recommend either for a new or prospective Nikon DX camera owner. Now you may or may not have a kit lens such as an 1855 with a polymer rear mount that came with your Nikon kit camera, whether it's a D3000, 5000, or 7000 series. But what we're going to do is we're going to consider the best possible choice, not only for future possible upgrade to FX, but let's just pretend you are never going to upgrade and you're perfectly happy, as you well should be, because I own many DX cameras as well as FX, and I use my Nikon DX 7100 most of the time anyway. What is the best consideration, the best bang for your buck to recommend? Now, as is the case, we need to be considering not having horse blinders on, that you're considering the purchase of DX lenses for your DX camera. All the FX lenses will work perfectly on DX cameras. However, as is the case with the D3000 series and D5000 series, you're actually limited as to the ability to use certain older lenses and also screw drive autofocus lenses that will only work on the Nikon D7000 series. So let's take a quick rundown and I will stop flapping my lips and make things simple. Right now, if you purchased a Nikon kit lens 18 to 55 and you're perfectly happy with it, that's fine. However, if you just are considering the prospective purchase of a Nikon DX camera, let's talk about the best bang for your buck, and that would be the 24 to 85 VRG. That is an FX lens currently sitting on this Nikon D7100 that has vibration reduction, ED glass, and it is a G series lens, and I use this lens 80% of the time on my Nikon D7100 when I'm roaming about. It is Nikon's sharpest mid-range zoom lens. It can be had mint and used on eBay for about $200 to $220. Next lens for consideration, as this will be not the second recommendation. Actually, the second recommendation would be a wide zoom, but let's look at this next, because usually somebody thinks, well, I have a mid-range zoom like an 18-55, or my recommendation here, the best lens. Now this will, all these lenses will work on any Nikon current DX camera. 5000 series, 3000, 7000 series, so no worries there. So we don't have any limitations. Next best recommendation, which you can purchase for $300 mint to used on eBay, would be the Nikkor 70 to 300 4556 ED glass G series vibration reduction. Now there are a few flavors of this lens. I recommend only purchasing the 70 to 300 VR, not because it has vibration reduction, but because it is a superior lens. The autofocus on this particular lens is absolutely stunningly fast. It's Roadrunner fast. This is a best purchase for your Nikon D3000, 5000, 7000 series camera that you are considering purchasing or just have purchased, flat out bar none. And I will state again in this video that I have owned every piece of Nikon glass or used same that Nikon has spit out for the past 30 years. So when I give you a recommendation, my spectrum of experience is far, far beyond broad. I consider it all-encompassing. Now, if you consider that egotistical, so be the case, but that should be a wealth of help for you, and that is what I'm trying to be, and also to save you money, and let you consider that, as a lot of people do, which is why I'm making this series, they have a Nikon DX camera, but they're only considering DX lenses. But this is a better choice for you, not only long-term, but also in cost savings, and also, in some cases, superior lenses. I'm recommending not only the best bang for the buck, but also lenses that will be superior to the DX equivalent of this lens. So this is a superior lens. It is an FX lens. Will work on any DX current Nikon camera. So even though this is an FX and it's cheaper, it's a better construction, but it's also a better recommendation. Remember also that Nikon's spectrum of lenses is mostly that of FX lenses. Now, second most important lens to own, but the third one that I'm mentioning here, is either one of two lenses. This is the Nikkor 10 to 24 3545G. Now this is a DX lens. Now while you can use the Nikon 18-35 lens or the 16-35 lens, which is actually a rather expensive lens, on any current Nikon DX camera, the cheapest of those two, the Nikon 18-35 G lens, basically cannot be found used, period. And we're talking $750 new. So my top recommendation, and I also use these on some of my FX cameras, however I use mostly the 12-24, which is a fixed aperture of f4, but nearly equally as valid, not as good a construction, but nearly so. Unless you have the two to compare, you'd be perfectly happy with the 10-24 Nikkor DX 3545G ED lens. Now this can be had minty used for about $400 on eBay. Since it is the case, use the 12-24 fixed f4, which is superior, as a faster lens, and it's also made in Japan as superior construction than this lens. Since it is only a hair higher used on eBay, I'm recommending to you not this 10-24, but the 12-24 that I also do own and recommend over this lens. If the cost differential was great, I would be recommending the 10-24, but since it's nearly identical, then my recommendation is to purchase the Nikkor 12-24 ED DX lens, not DX, the ED glass. That's it is a DX lens, excuse me, for your Nikon DX camera. Third, you need a nice prime lens, and the most important prime lens known in DX APS-C crop sensor mode would be a 50mm. Now, depending on whether you have a Nikon D3000 series or Nikon 5000 or D7100, D7200 or D7000 series lens, it takes an important consideration what you should or should not do and what I recommend here. Now, if you have a Nikon 3000 or 5000 series camera, what I would recommend is a normal DX lens for use on your Nikon 3000 or 5000 series. That would be this, the DX Nikkor AFS 35mm or 1.8G DX lens, typically used. It's like $130, but they are extremely cheap, new, $200 as I recall. Excellent construction, even though it is Chinese manufacturer. It's everybody needs a prime lens. And the argument is that if you get deeper into photography, you really should have half your lenses at least be prime lenses to capture the absolute best color saturation, depth, and possibility out of extracting your image that you're shooting versus that of zooms. So that would be a recommendation if you have a D3000 or 5000 series. Now, if you have a Nikon D7000 series, 7100, 7200, top recommendation if you want an autofocus would be like a 50mm f1.8. Typically you can find these for $80 used, a 50mm 1.8D series. Now this is an autofocus lens. Now the screw drive lens will not autofocus on a D3000 or 5000 series Nikon. So now if you want arguably the toughest, the second or the first toughest, it's equal to that of the Nikkor 50mm, toughest lens that Nikon ever made, and you can find them for $60 all day long. I give a highest recommendation to the Nikkor 50mm f2. Now, a Pancake Lens is a superior option that I recommend. However, the price on those has gone up quite a bit. It is thinner, it has a little less distortion, but it is not really that much faster than this, the Nikkor f2. This is plenty fast enough for what you need. Now, this is a manual focus only lens on any camera, FX or DX, as is the case, but this can be had for $60, superior prime lens quality. Do not recommend that for D3000 or 5000 series cameras. So this is what you need to consider, and let's looking at the ultimate price. Say you already have a kit lens, but you want something superior. We're looking at these three lenses, which should fulfill the spectrum of what most people want. Now the third option is that you should, as recommended, however I'm not trying to spend your money, have a nice prime lens to go with your DX camera, whether that's a 35mm DX lens for your 3000 or 5000 or 7000 series, or if you have a D7000, cheaper but slightly superior and far better constructed, these older lenses, which are out there in enormous abundance on eBay. I mean, they're just made for many years and are extremely cheap. So let's go roll down. $220 in the 24 to 85 millimeter ED-G lens, and $300 on the 70 to 300 VR telephoto lens. All of these are FX lenses right here. And third recommendation, however, second most important lens recommendation in general for most people as a generalization, would be the wide prime 12 to 24. Or if you cannot find it and are wanting a new lens and do not want to risk it on eBay, then I recommend the purchase of the 10 to 24, which is a good deal cheaper new. However, used, I do recommend the 12 to 24. So we are looking at $400, 2 and 3, $900. Now, if we allow a latitude, of course, in purchasing used on eBay, we'll roughly say we have $1,000 here in total. I assume you probably had a kit lens already, so this will fulfill the spectrum of what most people would ever want to do. You have a mid-range zoom, a wide zoom, and a telephoto. Extremely accurate, deadly fast autofocus, Nikon's sharpest mid-range zoom. So we're looking at 2 FX lenses and 1 DX wide zoom. Now, I cannot recommend the FX wide zoom for your DX camera in this particular case, rather the 12 to 24 to 10 to 24, because the wide zoom for the FX cameras, the FX lens 18 to 35 and 16 to 35 are rather expensive, and so far as the 18 to 35 is concerned, finding one used is basically nearly impossible, which says a lot about the lens, which means nobody gets rid of it, which says a lot. So, and the fourth most important lens to have is that I do recommend everybody for their camera. If you have a D7000 series, I would not consider the purchase of the 35 millimeter DX G lens, although it's perfectly fine. Recommend a cheaper option if you have a D7000 series camera, such as the Nikkor 50mm 1.8 or the Nikkor manual focus. Best bang for the buck. Now, there are lenses that top recommendation would actually be 50mm f1.4. However, we're talking about $120 typically, whereas this lens, the 50mm f2, never make sure that most of these lenses are non-AI. So if you go hunting for a 50mm f2, make sure it is AI lens and not a non-AI or pre-AI, because most of these lenses will not mount on your D7000 camera. So make sure it is an AI lens. And the recommendation here is sometimes you can find these for $40, typically $60 in minty shape like this. Like I said, it's a 50mm f2, built like a tank, just will last several lifetimes if you take care of it. But if you need an autofocus option, the 50mm f1.8D, typically $90 to $100. But like I said, neither one of these is an option. They are usable, but you cannot meter them or autofocus them on your D3000 or 5000 series cameras. So the top recommendation there would be for your D3000 or 5000 series camera to purchase the 35mm f1.8 DX lens. Like I said, new, $200. Minty used, about $120, $130. Any questions? Send me emails. I love answering questions and helping people. And this is all about saving money. And just remember that your DX camera can use FX lenses. And this is often the case, the spectrum is not only a lot cheaper, which is certainly so, but most definitely so, as is the case. The spectrum of what you have to be able to use on your DX camera is not limited to DX lenses. So you have an enormous amount of FX lenses, both new and used, at your capacity to purchase, and would be, in certain instances, as I've just recommended, a better buy, a superior buy, and likely so if you ever decide to, in the future, upgrade to an FX camera, then you're already set with FX lenses. But that's not what I'm making this consideration for. Superior lens is superior lens, and in some cases, as I've just pointed out, this is the superior mid-range zoom lens, superior telephoto lens for any DX camera. While these FX lenses, this is the best choice, both cost, sharpness, on down the line, to recommend to you for your DX camera. Thanks for watching.